my days, I'll forever give you praise. For you delivered me from a life of sin and shame. And ever since I met you, Lord Jesus, my life has never been the same. So with all my heart, I'm going to love you, Lord. With all my heart, I'm going to praise you, Lord. Matchless grace, you have extended me, and it's your face that one day I'll see, because you purified my heart, set me on a brand new way. And everything I give you, Lord Jesus, because everything you gave. So with all my heart, I'm going to love you, Lord. With all my heart, I'm going to.
Welcome to the Edgewood Church of Christ. I'm Brother John Wilkie, the minister. I'm so blessed and privileged to be able to serve God in this capacity here at this congregation of the Churches of Christ. I have a special guest with me tonight, Brother Govenor Tillery from the Sheriff's Department. I appreciate him being with us, and we're going to be discussing some very important things that's going on in the communities and in our world today, and our current events and what's taking place. But before that, I want to do some housekeeping and be able to make an announcement. One announcement is I want you to understand that all the lessons and interviews, whatever we're doing at the Edgewood congregation, that you can get those messages straight to your phone. All you have to do is text Edgewood COC to 48421. That's Edgewood COC to 48421. And you'll be able to get not only sermons and Bible studies, but interviews as well. And so it's a great tool that we have to be able to get the message out to people who can listen over and over and over and over again. So please do that, and so you can have your own connection with the Edgewood Church of Christ. I also want to mention this Saturday, we are having a virtual town hall meeting. This is this Saturday, the 11th, from 1 to 2, and the topic will be Understanding Justice, a Spiritual Perspective. And that we'll have Brother Minister Elmer Assembly III from the Woodlawn Park Church of Christ. We'll have Minister Samuel Knight from the Northwest Church of Christ. And we also have Shelley. She'd always just want me to call her Shelley. So we'll have Shelley. She has her organization, her faith-based organization is Change Starts with Hope. She's a law student at Pepperdine University. All of us are Christians, and we're going to have a very enriching discussion about understanding justice and wondering if justice will ever take place. Do we want justice, or do we want revenge? Like, what do we want? I think that, and what is going to take place? How do we achieve those things? And then the historical perspective of how we got to where we are. All that's going to be encompassed in that town hall meeting. And I'm just glad that I have my comrades and fellow Christians to help me in that discussion. But tonight, we're going to be addressing what to do when stopped. And this is kind of a tease of the vlog that I have called Experiencing or Experience All. And the acronym ALL stands for Word with Wilkie. And in this vlog, we'll be doing interviews, will be different topics, Christian, non-Christian things. It won't just all be Christian stuff, but we will be addressing current events and talking about things that usually that you don't get, the church doesn't get a chance to speak on or talk about or address. The idea is to get outside these four walls and be able to address those things that sometimes or in our history have been kind of taboo to discuss. But they're very important in connecting with people and in evangelizing to be able to understand where everyone is, because we are people too, and we're connected with people. We're not isolated from the community and the world. We're in it. And we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. And therefore, in order to do that, we have to get out and talk about those issues. So this vlog will be addressing a lot of those issues and some things inside the church as well that often don't get talked about. So I'm looking forward to presenting a lot of those interviews, and I'm looking forward to doing it. I'm excited about it, and I just appreciate and pray that God will be able to bless it. Brother Governor Tillery, you a captain yet, bro, or you just
still Lieutenant Tillery?
You're still Lieutenant Tillery.
Still Lieutenant
Tillery. So, 26 years he's been a sheriff, and I wanted to discuss with him. We're going to ask him some questions that I think a lot of you would want to hear from an officer perspective, his side of view. What is he thinking? How we got to listen to everyone's perspective. We can't be one-sided, and so it's very important. And I also want to make you aware, because he's made me aware of this. The National Black Police Association Incorporated has a pamphlet out, and this nonprofit organization, this corporation is chartered in the state of Maryland. It's the initials would be the NBPA. It prohibits discrimination in all programs and all its programs and activities on the basis of race, color, nationality, age, disability, and where applicable, sex, marital status, familial status, religion, sex orientation, or economic status. They have a mission statement to increase the awareness of the community and to be the conscience of criminal justice system, to be the conscience of the criminal justice system, and to enhance the quality of life in the African American community. So we have African American officers got together and created this pamphlet. There's some things on here that really sticks out to me. And you also can actually get this pamphlet online. The website, they have two places. One is the national, or just say national office at blackpolice.org. National office at blackpolice.org. The other one is www.blackpolice.org. Either one of those sites will get you to this pamphlet and the information that is in this pamphlet. There's something in here that I want to read. It says the National Black Police Association, an umbrella organization representing dedicated African American police officers nationally. The NBPA stands for the Unity, Justice, and Peace. The NBPA exists to help prod law enforcement agencies to be sensitive to the needs and concerns of minorities, women, and the poor. The basic materials in the pamphlet were prepared by the Police and Community Enterprise Project PACE. I've heard of them. We hope this pamphlet will be helpful. We urge, however, that you do not rely on it as a legal advisor. This is not a legal advisory. This is just to help you understand something and try to bridge the gap between the community. It also says, we hope the information presented here will make you aware of your constitutional rights and keep you from going to jail. And on that, I say amen.
Amen.
And then once you log on, the pamphlet also talks about what to do when police knock on your door. Not just to do when you're stopped, but what to do, what are your rights at home as well. I'm going to ask Brother Tillery, there are some pretty good do's and don'ts in this pamphlet. And then, I'll begin to ask Brother Tillery some personal questions, but as part of law enforcement, I want to ask my brother to just go over the do's and don'ts that are in this pamphlet. This is a good pamphlet for us to read, and I'm going to turn it over to Brother Tillery and ask him to go over that. And then we'll ask Brother Tillery some intimate questions, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Brother Wilkie. Again, this pamphlet is very helpful. You may not agree with everything that's in the pamphlet, but this has been written in an effort to try to minimize the danger to anyone in an encounter with the police. Of course, you're going to get stopped sometime. You may not know why you're going to get stopped. We have a duty to tell you why we stopped you. But we have to have a reason to stop you first. You have to have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to stop you. And it's not against the law to ask a question. It's not against the law how you ask the question, but how you ask the question can determine the direction that the interview or the stop goes to. So these are some important, they just summarize some of the do's and don'ts, and I want you to remember these. I want you to get this pamphlet and read it, because it talks about a car stop, it talks about if you're stopped on the street, it talks about if we show up at your house, and the things that you can and cannot do. But these are important, because police officers have a job that is very, very dangerous. We know that when we leave home every day, we may not return home, because there are some people out there who don't want us interfering with what they do, and they're willing to go to any extent to keep us from interfering. Law enforcement officers die every day on the street. Some of our most dangerous ones are car stops and domestic incidences. So if you get stopped by the police, keep your hands where the police can see them. Please do not run. Do not touch any police officer. Once you touch an officer, you give him the right then to arrest you for an assault. A lot of times in interview, if folks will just stand down and breathe for a minute, they'll find most of our interviews end in us giving you a citizen contact form and sending you about your way once we find out that you're not the individual we're looking for. If it's determined that you're going to be arrested, please do not resist arrest, even if you believe you're innocent. I tell this to my youngest son. He's a big bruiser. He's a MMA fighter, and he's a threat to most police officers out there. He's one of the nicest people you ever want to see, but if they walk up on him, he's got the dreads, and he's a big dude, and he's muscular, so he would threaten most police officers he would come across. I mean, it'd be a threat to them physically. So I tell him, if the police have determined they're going to arrest you, cooperate, go through with the arrest, we will fight it in court. I will be there, we'll get a lawyer, but you can't win on the street. You can't win a fight with the police, because they're going to call some more police, and then we see incidences where people get hurt, we've seen people get killed, and a lot of it starts with the resisting of arrest. I understand nobody wants to go to jail.
Right.
I don't want to go to jail. But if the police decided they were going to arrest me, which they could, if they caught me on a car stop and I did something wrong, and if I got out of pocket, they could arrest me. And I'm going to submit to the arrest, and I will handle it in court. I will handle it with a lawyer. It says, do not complain too strongly on the scene or tell the police they're wrong or that you're going to file a complaint. If you're trying to get a police officer, and usually, first I want everybody to know that just as 99% of the people are good people, and it's a small percentage of people who are bad people out there, the same thing goes for the police. We are seeing the small percentage of police who are out there, and if you look at all the police in the world, or all the police in the United States, the percentage of police who are out there doing bad or doing dirt are a small percentage. Most people are out there trying to preserve the peace, trying to enforce the law, and trying to protect the citizens. So if you can say, why are you arresting me? And if there's people around, don't call yourself an audience, but you can ask them so that other people will notice that you're being arrested. You want more than one set of eyes on it if you can. But you don't holler across the street and say, hey, baby, get your camera out, see what's going So don't complain too loud. Don't tell the police they're wrong because they already believe they're right. That's why they're arresting you. You need to fight that in court. And a lot of times, if the police are wrong or a law enforcement officer is wrong, a good lawyer can bring that out in court. And I know you will have gone through something you didn't want to go through, but you'll be exonerated, and then you can take matters from there. Ask for a lawyer immediately when you're arrested. Tell them I want a lawyer. Don't answer any questions because anything you say or do can and will be used against you in court later on. Mm-hmm. If you can, record the officer's badge numbers, patrol car numbers, and write down everything you can remember as soon as you can, especially their name. Every law enforcement officer should have their name and their badge readily identifiable and readily seeable so that you can get that information. And if you can't see it for some reason, you can ask them for it. If they fail to give it to you, then file a complaint with the police department about the fact that they didn't divulge that information. We have a duty to do that. And if there are witnesses in the area, if your friends across the street, just let them be good witnesses. Remember their names, or anybody that's there who say, I saw what was going on. If you can get their names and phone numbers, but do not encourage them to interfere with what the police are doing because they will end up in the wagon right beside you. Uh-huh. So you want them on the street, you want them to be able to say what's going on and to come to court for you and testify for you. That's for anybody who hasn't done anything. Even if you've done something wrong, you deserve to be treated with respect. We're not there to punish you. We're there to stop you from doing what you're doing and to bring you to justice. So these are some of the important things I want you to remember if you're ever approached by the police and if they ever determine they're going to arrest you. Please.
Yeah, that was some good information, and I think we're going to try to put this information on our website or a link that people can click on that link and get this pamphlet. Yes, because I know there are a lot of things that's going on in society right now, but we still got to be able to get home, right?
Amen.
And I have sons, and I want to make sure my son gets home, and I'm telling my son to keep his hands on the wheel. I still got to instruct him to do that. No matter how things are, you still have to educate them on how to get home.
Yes, sir.
Because I've had my experiences with the police growing up. I had police that helped me before. Mm-hmm. I was fighting 30 guys, Brother Tillery, in the street, and I was winning though. But the point is that I had a weapon in my hand, mm-hmm. and the police actually didn't take me to the police station. They took the weapon and took me home.
Wow.
And because they thought it was unfair that. It was there was the right police officer at mm-hmm. that time, right? You got a good police officer. Then I had an experience with a bad police. I had a 50-50 experience mm-hmm. with a police officer that pulled me over, didn't even give me a ticket, took me downtown, was looking for drugs in a car. They beat me up at the station, didn't let me go, and took my money. And so, I didn't report it because, it was money I wasn't supposed to have anyway. So they were profiling me, but they had the right profile that time. But I'm just saying that, just how the law worked, there was no citation, there was no record, there was nothing, no ticket. So they really pulled me over just because I had that look, right? So I know I have to, I know it's important for us to be able to make sure that we save our life is more important than that we get home. Mm-hmm. Now, I've never had any encounter with a sheriff, though. So what's the difference between the sheriff and the police?
The basic difference between the sheriff and the police are our primary duties. Some people say jurisdiction, but in the city of Baltimore, the sheriff and the police have the same jurisdiction, the confines of Baltimore City. And we can go out of the city on a court order. But basically, your police officer has the call for service duties. That's that 911 call that you would make. And they're the ones who show up. They're a much larger agency. They have the primary duties of investigation of murders and robberies, so they have all those units. The sheriff's primary job is the Circuit Court of Baltimore City, and now some of the District Court of Baltimore City. So we're there to run the courts, provide security for the courts, provide security for the judges, and all the personnel and people to come through the courthouse. We also serve summonses, warrants, and any other piece of paperwork that's initiated out of the Circuit Court and some that's initiated out of the District Court. We, one of our primary, all of them are important, but one of my favorite ones was domestic violence paperwork. What used to be called expertise and now called protective orders. We serve every protective order in the city of Baltimore now. And we coordinate with other jurisdictions to serve the ones that are outside of Baltimore. So it's basically the scope of duty, but a Baltimore City Sheriff has every power that a Baltimore City police officer has, plus some that they don't have. So a sheriff has to be trained extra over what a city police officer does, because we can serve civil paperwork, we can serve civil warrants, we can serve, and the police cannot serve civil process. So if they have a civil process, they have to turn it over to us to serve. So that's the only basic difference. Primarily, they go out and patrol. We go patrol also when we get finished serving our paperwork or whatever we're doing. We have deputies. You should see deputies out on the street of Baltimore every day. In between serving their paperwork, they're doing traffic stops. They're backing up Baltimore City Police or any other police agency that's out there when there's a problem. If they see what we call on-view crimes, if I see you commit a crime, I have a duty to act and to stop that crime and to make an arrest. So that's a basic difference.
That's the difference. Yeah, I was going to ask. So the sheriff's department doesn't have a 911.
No, we don't.
Right, just the police department does.
Police department has 911. We are often on the same channel as they are.
Okay.
So if there's an issue, it'll come out on what we call the citywide broadcast, and we will respond there. There are plenty of times something comes out if the police are not near and we're near. We're the first units on scene. We'll try to get control of it till the police arrive, and then we turn it over to them.
Okay. So, Brother Tillery, why? This is like I said, we're gonna get some personal questions in, and you can answer them as how you like. I'm not gonna tell you how to answer the question. But why become a sheriff instead of a policeman? Like, well, why don't you be a cop, man? I mean, you were still a cop, but why sheriff?
Well, for me, there was a lot of personal reasons there. I had always dreamed as a kid to become a police officer. I don't know how many people know me or know my situation, but the sheriff's office was one of the first jobs that came open after I retired from the military. And so I got there, and giving credit to my boss, Sheriff Anderson, he allowed me, my oldest son, Michael, is disabled, and he requires a lot of time and attention. So he allowed me to be able to take care of my child at the same time while I held down a full-time job. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is I've already served a career in the United States military, and I didn't want to work any more weekends and holidays. Well, the sheriff's office normally is off on weekends and holidays. I like that. Now, we make a little less money than the police do, but sometimes you got to exchange convenience or privileges for how much money you make. And so weekends and holidays was very appealing to me. One time I thought about going to Baltimore City, but it would not have fit my life. God put me in the right place to be able to take care of my child and still take care of my family and have a career. So, and I like being a sheriff. I love being a sheriff because we tease the police all the time. In the Constitution, the sheriff is the only constitutional law enforcement officer. The police department are what they call peace officers. So we tease the police and tell them we wear a badge, they wear a shield. Constitutionally, the sheriff is the highest law enforcement officer in the land. So in Baltimore City, Sheriff John Anderson is actually the top cop. You have the police commissioner who's the top of the police department, but John Anderson is the top cop in Baltimore City. He also has other duties he could do if he decided that he wanted to take them. But there's something romantic to me about being a sheriff because it goes all the way back to the cowboy days. You remember the sheriff? He was the town sheriff, and then you had the marshal. He was the federal, which is our U.S. Marshals now. He's the federalized sheriff. So he could go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But the sheriff normally held down what was going on in the towns. The police came along as municipalities, as urban areas came along, and then they needed to create a peace force inside the county. Normally the county is where the sheriff would be. Baltimore City is considered Maryland's 24th county, and it grew up inside of Baltimore County, and since it became such a big city, they allowed it to still have a sheriff and a police department. But the sheriff is actually the top cop. I like working for the top cop. I think it's very cool to be a deputy sheriff.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Because back in the day, I thought that the sheriffs were the ones that police the park. That's the ranger.
No, that's a ranger.
I know. That's what I'm just saying. I just thought that. But listen, I don't think society or a lot of living in the neighborhoods, especially in city, even in Philly, we didn't see the sheriffs that much, right? We just always saw the police. And so now this relationship with society and the police brutality and the tension between citizens and police, and you see what's going on. And I know that, being a Christian man, being a policeman, a family man, father, husband, there's a lot going through your mind. You see the tension, but you also have camaraderie with your fellow officers as well, who have become like family, right? And you see all the tension. The question I wanted to ask is, what's the most difficult thing for you in the time that's going on right now? What's tearing you apart the most? Because I know there has to be, you have to feel some type of way with, you develop two families. You've been in the police force a long time. You've been in law enforcement for 26, almost 30 years. You're going on 30 years, right? 26, and you've developed a family with those. You have to trust those people, and y'all, develop tight relationships. But you also see your own folks in the city, and you see the brutality, and you say maybe it's 1% or so that's always broadcast. Maybe most of the police officers or law enforcement is not like that, at least the people that you're with. But what hurts you the most with everything that's going on in society? What hurts you the most?
First, let me say, in Baltimore City, the sheriff's office enjoys a very good relationship with the community. And so that makes it easy on my deputies who are on the street. We're not known for abusing people. We're not known for, we've not ever been brought up on charges of police brutality and or any of the nonsense that you see here now, because the sheriff himself would not tolerate it. My bosses are very tight on that. If you use force in any matter, you have to fill out a use of force report. And this has to outline everything that's going on. And I, as a supervisor, had to go out and investigate that use of force. I had to go interview people in their houses and anybody that may have seen this, so we can get the honest story about what happened in that use of force. And if we find out that our deputies are wrong, then they are held to the general orders and they're punished in accordance with. But the thing that hurts me most right now is the mistrust, or one of the things that bothers me is, just like you don't want to be grouped into a bad group of people because you're one color. We don't want to be said all black people are bad, all white folks are bad. We don't want to be said that all police are bad, because they're not.
Right.
You got people who honestly come out there every day and they put it on the line, knowing that they may not go home and see their families that day. So I've been hurt on duty. Other officers have been hurt on duty. We've had a deputy sheriff shot on duty. So it's just as dangerous of a job, but it hurts to be corralled into that small percentage of police who don't want to do the right thing. We don't like them as much as you don't like them, because it makes our job harder. We want to have a relationship with the community, and you find out when you have a relationship with the community that it makes your job easy, and that because somebody will tell you something. Let me tell you of an incident I had early in my career. I was out on patrol, and I was over in West Baltimore, and I saw the drug crew. It was a whole bunch of looking for the drug man. It was a whole bunch of them. So I pull up with my patrol car, and I'm moving them along. Y'all got to go. Come on, you guys can't be here. So as I got them out of the area, I pull off, and a few seconds later, a Signal 13, an officer in distress call, comes over the radio.
Was that what that code is?
Yeah, Signal 13 is officer in distress.
Okay.
Officer needs help.
All right.
And so I respond back, and it's right back where I just come from. I'm like, what in the world just happened around the corner? So I go back around the corner, Baltimore City Police, we all respond. And so we don't see any officer in trouble. So we asked the dispatcher to call back to the 911 center and ask them what was the call about. And the call was that a citizen saw a deputy sheriff in the middle of a bunch of drug folks, and they thought that he was in trouble. That's the relationship that we want. We want you to look out for us, because we might be in the middle of a mess. And we may not be able to get to our radio. And we want the citizens to love us just like we love doing our job to protect them. And if we get in trouble, I want that call to go out that I'm in trouble, because I may not be able to get to my radio. I might be fighting. and they can get me help. So that's the kind of relationship that we really want. With what's going on now, it's making people suspicious. It's making people aggravated with the police.
Right.
And, you might not get that call today because people are not liking the police. Now, I'm not saying every officer is good, and we know that.
Right.
And we want to get those officers off the street just like you want to get them off the street.
Right.
The nonsense that we've seen lately, those officers should go to jail, and they should go to jail for a long time, and we should build a jail on top of them. I'd like to. We want to get to the point where when we run into bad officers,
Right.
we want to be the ones to arrest them,
Right.
stop them from what they're doing, put them in jail, and bring them to justice. So the thing that hurts most is that we're being all grouped into one knot, defund the police. And I understand there's some monies that can be moved around, but don't defund us to the point where we cannot do our jobs. Don't defund us to the point where we're at a disadvantage and we can't patrol the streets like we need to. That we can't walk through the community, because I do believe in community policing. So I think that's probably the one part of it. The good officers are getting caught up with the bad officers, and that's not fair, as it's not fair for me to say that every young black man I see on the corner is a drug dealer or he's doing something wrong. So we need to all learn to get over our prejudices and open up and see what's real and what's not.
When you were in that, did you have any fear when you were, like, you were by yourself when you stepped out?
Yeah, I didn't step out. I was in my car.
Okay.
But I was in the middle, and I wasn't afraid.
Right.
Because most of the time when you see...
Because you had a gun.
No, because...
No, I'm
really,
just I had to throw that in, light it up.
When you see the people looking for drugs, they're not looking for trouble.
Right.
But what they're looking for is the crack man or whatever drug they're looking for. And so if you ask them to move along, most of the time they're pretty cooperative.
Right.
But also that's the place where the meat was supposed to be. So you might back off and wait and see if the crack man show up. Okay. But they'll go somewhere else. I wasn't afraid that day, no.
Okay.
But it's good to know that if I was in trouble, that a
right.
citizen somewhere in that house was looking out the window and they were looking out for me.
Now, to continue that line of thinking, I know that especially, like, I know you see rookie officers come in, right? And they got to go out there maybe their first month or so. And they may not even live in the area that they got to police or they got to cover, right? And they're dealing with society and the corner guys. I mean, you've been in it a long time, so you kind of comfortable with knowing that, listen, I can get these guys out of here without any altercation or any incident happening. But I know that as a police officer, as a law enforcement, and this is one of the questions I believe you and Brother Mitchell Bennett were having a good discussion the other day, and I wanted to take a couple of his questions that he had, because one of the things that Brother Bennett was mentioning that I thought was a good discussion was that you have to get home, right? I'm telling my son who's driving, when you stop by the police, I need you to get home. Right? Your family, you got a family. Your family, and you want to be able to listen, I got to be able to get home. And so you have this, I guess it's the training or the mindset that your safety comes first. And if your safety comes first, because you have to get home, but part of your pledge is to protect and serve. How do the two connect where maybe a rookie officer is thinking more about getting home if something looks like it's going to happen, and he responds because, well, my first thing is I need to get home. Instead, how do they coexist together is the question. How do you what do you say to that?
Okay, I brief to my people. Job number one is we go home every day. But when I say that, I don't say that we go home by hook or crook or by doing anything illegal, or we don't mistreat people to go home. We go home through proper procedure, proper training, knowing when not to put yourself in a bad situation. So, and yes, it is important that we go home. I got a family to take care of, just like everybody else has a family to take care of. So I'm going to do everything that I can, but I'm not going to break the law to go home. I'm not going to hurt somebody just so I can go home. Now, it doesn't make me more important than the other person, because I'm out there to protect and to serve. I know those are words you hear all the time. They're kind of like buzzwords, but that's what we do. And so I am willing to put my life on the line to protect you. So I'm not going to run away just so I can go home every day. And I accept that as what I've accepted to do every day. I'm coming out there to say, I will do my best, even if it takes my life to protect your life. And that's what every citizen that's out there. I know it sounds good, and I pray that is truly what I would do. You never know until you get in the situation. I've been in plenty of situations, and you have what they call the fight or flight response. I fought. I've done what I had to do to keep the law or to protect someone else. So I'm praying that I will always do that until I lay the badge down. Mm-hmm. So, no, it's not us being more important than anybody. And for my rookie officers, and our officers that we put on the street, there's what they call a field training officer program. So they don't go out there by themselves until they've been out there with an experienced officer, and the experienced officer signs off that they think that this individual can handle the street. And we take them into the areas where they got to be, and we let them manage a corner by themselves. We let them approach that corner and see if they can handle it. They know how to talk to people. If they can de-escalate a situation as best they can, and do they know when to start to effect an arrest? Do they know when to call for backup? Do they know how to, there's sometimes you go to a corner and you be like, gentlemen, start off with gentlemen. Gentlemen, I need you guys to get off the corner. Or we've had a complaint from the citizens, and they're complaining about you being here. Y'all need to do me a favor and move along, please. I'll say 9 out of 10 times, maybe 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 times, the people will move because they don't want any problems either. They don't want any attention. And then there's that 10th time when you got that one knucklehead who wants to make a lot of noise and tell you what he's not going to do. And you still have to, you can't take that personal. You still have a process you have to go through to make him move before you arrest him. And normally by the time he gets to the point where he thinks you serious, he will go too. And I got no problem with a man talking nonsense as long as he's doing what I ask him to do. I tell him, as long as you do your talking and walking, we good to go. And then, but you don't go at him because he came at you. That's what escalates the situation. Next thing you know, you're in this big fight when you could have handled it, you could have handled it mentally or by words. So, but that's what we teach our officers to do. And praying that they will do their job, that the citizenry is why we're here. We're out here because there are a lot of good people, and I believe that people that have the right to live peaceably, unharassed, unafraid. And that's one of the reasons why I became a law enforcement officer. And that's what I try to teach my guys. Right. That we're out there truly to protect and to serve.
And, we had some live comments on Facebook as well about this discussion that we have, and I just appreciate everybody calling in. And people just expressing how they feel. And I guess I can almost answer this knowing you that one life is not more important than another life. The cop's life is not more important than the person that you're approaching, and vice versa. And you're coming from the policeman who actually cares about the job. You can't even answer for the other folks, right? You can't answer for the policeman who is prejudiced or maybe, and you can answer this question, Brother Tillery, how do you, like if you're having a bad day, that had nothing to do with the job, right? You're just having a bad day. Because I believe that I've come up against some cops that was having a bad day. And it's just how they was just mean. I was like, what's wrong with him? But I mean, how do you cope, separate, or do you just take off, when you're having a bad, like if I'm in a really terrible place, I'll ask somebody else to preach.
Right, I got you.
You know what I mean? I ask somebody else to give the message. I ask somebody else to bring it because I don't want to get in between God's communicating with someone else, right? And so I'll remove myself, and I'll allow somebody else to. I don't tell the person, listen, I'm having a bad day, I'm in a bad space, preach. I'll ask somebody, can you preach for me today? Right, and I'll deal with how do you do that? I know this is something, there was one of the questions that came up on Facebook about which life is more better, and so this is my best way of addressing that is to get that little commentary first. So when you haven't, how do you cope with that in your personal life?
Okay, first, the idea of one life being more important, that's totally not true. For the proper law enforcement officer, for the guy who's out there to do, or the lady who's out there to do the right thing, because as you heard me say before, I would put my life in front of yours to protect you.
Right.
And I truly mean that. There are a lot of police officers who have died because they've stepped in the line of fire to protect someone else. And that's what a true officer will do. That's what you've sworn to do, and that's the reality that you accept. So we don't think we're more important, or most officers don't think they're more important than the next guy. I'm not going to not go into a situation to preserve my life when I know that there's a citizen who's in trouble. Active shooter situations are the perfect examples. Mm-hmm. You have to run into a situation where somebody's actively shooting at people, and we're taught that you got to go in. If you hear gunfire and people are getting hurt, you can't wait. You got to tactically try to get there to stop the harm that's being done. So I don't believe most police officers believe that their lives are more important than the other people. As for the bad day, everybody has a bad day. We are humans, but we're humans that are endowed with a lot of authority and a lot of power. So if I'm having a really, really bad day, mm-hmm. I'm taking the day off.
Okay.
I've had bad days out there where I've been not the nicest person you've ever met. I remember one incident, the ice cream truck was blocking the street. And I told him, you got to move.
Don't tell me you locked the ice cream man.
I ain't lock him up, but I told him, you got to move. The kids was wanting to get the ice cream. And I had to come back and apologize to those people. And I told them, it's a bad day. I should not have taken that out on you all.
Right.
And had the ice cream man still been there, I would have bought everybody ice cream. But I had to come back and tell them, look, I apologize, because I know I'm a Christian first.
Right.
And you don't abuse people. But we have bad days, and you got to recognize when you're having a bad day so that you can be cognizant of how you're acting. So, we all have them. We just try to control them, because you can't take off every time you're having a bad day. But you got to put that bad day aside. Like you were saying here, as a song leader, I might be tired. I might be worn out. But I got to get up here and give God the best song service that I can give him. I got to put me aside.
Right.
And give him the best service that I can give him.
Right.
Same thing with a police officer. I got to get out there and give the citizens the best service that I can give them.
Right.
And if I do something wrong, be man enough to apologize.
Yeah, I think that y'all have, do you go through any psych evals after an incident? Or do you have a system, a mechanism in place for you to deal with issues? Because, if it's different for if the person who is cleaning the building has a bad day, he misses a spot. But if a policeman that has a bad, somebody going to jail, somebody getting shot, or your coworkers get hurt, like it's almost like y'all can't afford, because of the authority and the power that you have, mm-hmm. to have a bad day. Now, connecting with that, let's just say those officers who do the wrong things, the ones that you're trying to make sure that don't happen, the one mm-hmm. when an officer does something wrong, you go review and you go interview, because your job is to make sure that he follow protocol and do all those things, mm-hmm. right? And so, do you think that the officers who commit a crime, mm-hmm. which if you kill somebody, or if you shoot somebody and you're not, it's the wrong situation, do you think the punishment now is, there's a lot of police officers, what has actually factually being found mm-hmm. is that it's blue, and then it's the community. Like, you got to stick up for the blue. This is the police code for the blue. Mm-hmm. And they cover, because some may say, well, listen, man, if I say, let's do an incident that was on television, mm-hmm. right? This was wrong, but thank God that the body camera they thought it turned off, but it was turned on, mm-hmm. and the guy placed drugs on somebody, mm-hmm. right? And now he wants his friend to back him up. It's blue. Because if I don't back him up, then I got to go to work with that person, mm-hmm. right? So now I got to watch my back. Now, it might be a movie thing with me. I done seen it in the movies, right? I done watched movies like 999 and all mm-hmm. these other movies, right? But do you think that those officers should be held to a higher standard than the people that commit crimes? Or do you think it should be even? How do you think that enforcement of laws should take place when officers break it, who have the power, right? Because we don't have the power, and we break a law, and but with the officer who has the power, how do you feel about it? What do you say to that?
Well, Brother Mitchell and I have had that discussion, and I believe personally that because we're entrusted with such authority, we're entrusted with such power, and we've sworn to uphold the law, that if a law enforcement officer breaks the law, the penalty should be double that of what it would be for the normal citizen. Because we said we're going out there to protect, we're going out there to serve, we're going out there to uphold, and when we become criminals, I believe that we should, if a normal citizen would get 2 years, get a police officer 4 years. If he's truly found guilty and convicted, let every other officer know that you not only are you given a lot more authority and a lot more power than the normal citizen, but you're also held to a higher standard than the normal citizen. Right. And if you do wrong, that your punishment is going to be higher than the normal citizen. The part you were talking about, there is that blue line, okay? But I can only speak for me, and I can speak for a lot of the young men and women that work for me because they know how I am. My primary line to my fellow officers is, I'm not going to jail for you. I'm not going to lose my home for you. I'm not going to lie for you and uphold something that you did wrong.
Right.
If you did wrong, fess up that you did it wrong, take the punishment that goes with it, and let's push on from there. Most of the things that police officers do are not fireable offenses. You may get sanctioned with some time off without pay or whatever. But if you made a mistake or if you did something intentionally, tell the truth. The worst thing you can do is do it and then lie about it and get caught in the lie. With a police officer, your credibility is all you have, because if you are found guilty of lying, then you're no longer good as a police officer because you can't even testify in court.
Right.
So if I did something wrong, that's one of the things my chief says about me. He says, Governor, I know if you did something wrong, you're going to say you did it wrong. Because I'd rather him catch me wrong doing something and punish me than him catch me lying, because I just threw away all of my credibility and possibly my career. But as far as the thin blue line, yes, there's a you got to remember that sometimes you feel like it's us against them, but you got to quickly eliminate the us against the citizen, because we're out there for the citizens. Sometimes you don't like people. I mean, there's times you don't like folks, but you got to remember, one, it's not all the people.
Right.
Two, even if you don't like them, you still have to protect them. And we cannot, because there may be an instance. I believe in the George Floyd instance, one of the things that was said about one of the officers is they were afraid to make that guy get off of Mr. Floyd's neck because they were afraid of being chastised.
By the senior officer.
By the senior officer and other officers, because my boss and I, we had a conversation about it, my major and I, and you have to be willing to put yourself in that situation, because had I been there, he wouldn't have been on this guy's neck. If I catch any of my people doing that kind of nonsense, one, we're going to stop it.
Right.
Two, we're going to prosecute, because that's just you're not there to hurt people, just to hurt people.
Right.
And yes, other people might say, well, yeah, I don't want to work with you, or I don't care about that. If I did the right thing, I don't care about you not wanting to work with me, and I don't care about being chastised by other officers. I'm so far in my career now, it doesn't even matter anymore.
Right.
But for a young officer, that can be kind of intimidating, but we try to teach them, be known for doing the right thing. And if you have to speak against another officer, you have to speak against another officer.
Right.
And if we found out, I know with me and most of the people I work for, we find out that somebody's harassing you because you did the right thing, then we'll deal with who's harassing.
Do they look at society because they're policing? I know that there have been, I feel as though that my folks, my people, that I'm talking about African Americans, it's almost if we have to walk around in society with freedom papers, You've been on suspicion. Show me your ID. You've been here. Oh, do you work here? Oh, are you a part of this? Are you in this hotel? Do you live in this particular? You almost like you got to walk around with freedom papers, and we're kind of fed up with. That's the racism part of it. But does law enforcement, when they go out, I know they hit the protect and the serve, but when they go in certain communities, do they look at everyone as a threat? Do I know you work more in the court, you work more in the domestic violence, because that's dangerous as well, because you go into someone's home. You knocking on the door, you don't know what kind of weapon they have. You don't know if they, have something in their hand, and you go and they tell you, get out of here, this is between me and my wife, and is every situation a threat first?
No, and we talked about that also. When we say, I think I said to somebody, I look at everybody as a threat. When I say that, I don't look at the common sense. If I approach you and
Right.
you're being normal, I mean, I'm asking you some questions, but you're not being antagonistic, you're not fighting and fussing. Now, if you raise up, then I have to consider you a threat until I know that you're not, or until I have control of the situation.
Don't you approach?
But I don't look at
Don't you approach how do you approach a vehicle then?
sometimes. Now, it depends. At night,
Right.
if I do a car stop at night and I can't get back up, if I have to do the car stop, yes, I'm ready to react. When I approach a vehicle, the first thing I want to see, like it said in the pamphlet, I want to see everybody's hands.
Right. That's
Because
what's
it's
in
the
pamphlet.
hands
It
that's
says
going
turn
to
your
kill
inside
you.
light on. That's
Right.
one of
Turn
the
the
things
inside light on. I want to see everybody in the car's hands. Once I see those hands and I see that they're not doing anything, then I can de-escalate a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
But you never, ever totally relax. It's what we call conditioned white. Conditioned white can get you killed because we got officers who have stuck their faces inside people's cars trying to be friendly and have gotten their faces blown off. The incident a few years ago when we first moved to Harford County where the 2 sheriff's deputies got killed over here at the Panera Bread, the officers sat down at the table with the gentleman and were talking to him. He pulled a gun out and shot both of them and killed them. So even until I get back into my car, you are going to be a certain level of threat. You're never going to be no threat to me because you might be the nicest, most convincing person in the world until I turn my back. And then I can catch a bullet into the back of the head. But I don't walk up to every citizen saying, hey, let me see your hands. Get on the ground. That's not how you do it. But you do, when you say a threat, you treat the threat with caution. You don't become that guy.
Right.
You just realize that anybody can kill you. Even a grandmother out there or a small child can kill you. But you don't try to treat everybody as if they need to be at the end of a gunpoint.
Right.
That's part of our job. We deal with people who don't want to deal with doing right or they don't want to deal with the law. And we're a threat to them, so they're also a threat to us. But we don't start up here.
Right.
If you start up here, you got nowhere to go but to pull your weapon and shoot somebody. And that's something I pray I never ever had to. I haven't had to do it in almost 26 years. I pray I never have to use my weapon in the line of duty, praying that I would be prepared to do so if I need to.
Yeah, I remember the incident in Harford County where the guy was at the Panera Bread and the two sheriffs
Yep, 2 sheriff's deputies.
got shot. Mm-hmm. Both died, one died.
Both of them died. Two
Both
of them died on
died
duty that day.
and pulled up to him. But that guy, that was the white guy though.
Yep.
Right. So
there's no distinguishment between for a good officer. Now, I'm
saying,
not going to lie that there are some officers who are afraid of black folks. The black man is a threat. I'm even a threat. I could get pulled over by an officer, and because I'm a black man, if I don't identify myself properly, and that might not even matter. I could get killed as a police officer if you got the wrong person on the other end of the gun. Now, my wife and I have a discussion about how police treat black folks over white folks. Am I higher up here with my threat level if it's a black guy than it is a white guy? I can personally say for me, no.
Okay.
A human that's got hands that can carry a weapon gets the same amount of respect no matter what their color is.
I respect
because
that.
a white man can kill me just as quick as a black man can kill me. Asian man can kill me just as quick as anybody else can kill me. So
I respect that.
But
it goes to figure that if that was a black guy sitting there at the Panera Bread, would they have sat down with him?
I can't say what they would have
Because
done. I say they should not have done it in the first
where
place.
guys white guy holding a machete, and the police is talking to him, and he chasing them around the car.
Brother.
And so, I was just...
Unfortunately, that's the reality. I can't sit here and make excuses for the police or for any other officer. I had a black man pull a machete on me one time on duty. And he pulled a knife out. Matter of fact, the only thing that brought to his thing, I heard his buddy say, hey, man, what you doing? So I turned around, and he got this big Bantu knife in his hand. So I step out the steps of the house that I'm serving. I pull my weapon. I tell him, sir, drop the knife.
Okay.
He looks at me and licks the knife. He runs the knife down his tongue. And I step back one more step because we've been trained to know that an individual who's properly trained can close distance and kill you before you can ever get your weapon sighted on or get an accurate shot. So I step back and I ordered him again to drop the weapon.
Right.
Now, thank God he dropped it and then he started following commands. But I didn't shoot him because he was a black guy. I mean, come on.
I got you.
You know. And if it was a white guy and he started following commands, I would have done the same thing. I would have put him on his knees, called for backup, made the arrest. So it's the officer. You know, there's times when you can use your weapon. The question is, should you? Do you need to?
Do you need to?
If a person's obeying my commands and doing what I need them to do. Now, if he had to come towards me with a knife, I would have fired my weapon.
Now here is how do we fix it, this relationship? Because, you know, how do we fix the relationship between the police and the citizens? Because it's fractured right now.
Yeah.
Right? And I know it's a loaded question. That's not that's not something that just can be easily answered. I know that's a loaded question, but nevertheless, you know, this is what we're trying to fix. Like,
Right.
you know, we got to defund the police because they want to allocate. Defund doesn't mean to. Some people think it means to cut your salaries.
Right.
It just means that the money should be allocated to different resources depending on the calls that come in, right? You may need. I think they're saying they still should be police officers, but they're trained in different areas where they can go and be able to assist. But you said that the sheriffs really do the domestic violence thing, but a lot of police people are called.
Yeah, they answer the call, that 911 call when there's a domestic incident. We serve most of the orders, but they're the ones that are going to get that call when somebody's acting up in the house or there's a turmoil between the family. So they're going to respond there. And we know that is one of the biggest things that kills police officers in the line of duty is a domestic incident. Because I might come, you may have jumped. We know you wouldn't jump on Sister Wilkie.
No,
but
don't
the bad guy might have jumped on his wife.
That up, bro.
The bad guy may have jumped on his wife.
Right.
And then we get there to try to break this up.
Right.
And we determine, because there's laws that say if we see something within a certain amount of hours and we see
Right.
evidence of an attack, we have to arrest. We don't even have an option.
Right.
The person can't say, well, I don't want to press charges, because crimes in the state of Maryland are not against the individual. They're against the
Right.
state. That's why you don't have a right to drop charges. But I go to arrest him because I have to, and then she jumps on my back. So it's a very, very tense situation. It's a very dangerous situation. But I think what's going to help, and I know we got a long way to go, we got a lot we got to do, but I believe transparency. I believe those body cameras are very important.
Right.
I believe that an officer who has a body camera that turns it off should be punished. I believe that community policing, real community policing, I'm talking about getting your butt out the car,
Right.
go walk through these neighborhoods, get to know those people.
Right. I was going.
Everybody ain't a threat. Okay, even the guys on the corner, most of the times if you go talk to them like they're human beings, they will respond in kind.
Right.
And if you need them to
Right.
move and you ask them to move, not, hey, get off the corner. Hey, bro, look, I need you guys to do this. Or you know,
Right.
you might say, hey, man, that's a nice set of shoes you got on there. Look, by the way, I got a call. And citizens are complaining. I need you guys to take a walk, please. 9 out of 10 times those dudes are going to walk.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, community policing, I believe that a real honest civilian review board, like Baltimore City now is under the consent decree. So they have a civilian review board and some other things in place. Let everything that's done go through the civilian review board.
Right.
But you got to have a civilian review board that is not completely opposite anti-police. too.
Anti-police.
Get
right.
a good group of people who are going to honestly look at the facts of the case and to try the case on its merits to see if the police officer did or did not do what they were supposed to do. And if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, then they can recommend punishment. But then it's up to us then to
Right.
look at their recommendation. And if the facts line up, to do the punishment.
Right.
We can't just sweep it under the rug. That's what's killing us right now. Is too many times we have looked out for each other. We've swept, the police officers have swept stuff under the rug.
Right,
Or
right.
bosses, and then the police officer never gets punished. That hurts us in two ways. One, they didn't get punished for what they were doing. But two, that teaches other police officers that they can get away with it.
They can get
too.
away with it.
We need to teach the opposite lesson.
Right.
If you're going to do wrong, you're going to be punished. And once they get that through their heads, once the police get that through their heads, or any sheriff, when I say police, I mean any law enforcement,
Right.
gets that through their head that they're going to be held accountable and you're going to be punished when you do wrong, then it's less likely a police officer will, or at least he'll think about it
Right.
before he does
before
wrong
he
or
does
she
it.
does wrong.
Right.
So I believe full accountability, full transparency, and I think because we're not going to regain the immediate trust of the community just like that.
No, it's
so
gonna
we're
take
going to
a
have to
while,
work
bro.
at it, but you guys are going to have to give us a chance too.
I'm gonna give you a chance, bro. I don't know why they took away the police athletic clubs, because that was, I don't know if they have them. You know what that? Do you ever heard of the
The
PAL?
PAL, yeah,
like they
money.
in Philly, man. It was, but that's what I'm saying. So that's something I think that could be back in the community, because you knew that when you went there,
Mm-hmm.
at least I did, you were safe.
Right, right.
I could. There wasn't going to be no gang. There wasn't going to be nothing in there.
Right.
They were there, but they were actually facilitating sports and activities and keeping the kids off the street and doing all those things. So I know it's going to take a lot of things, but I love the civilian board. I love that idea, the transparency. I love that as well. And so I want to make sure that I ask you this question, because we're just about out of time. You have a son.
Mm-hmm.
That's in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And, what are your concerns for him? As a father, what do you go through? You got to go home when you out there policing and doing your job, and you got to come home. Now you got a son who is sheriff, who was also in the military, but now he's on the streets. It's different. Military in the streets is different.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about your son being out there, and what's your concerns for him before we get ready to leave?
Okay, Chris is a pretty smart dude. He's a pretty smart guy. He's well trained, and he's about his business. Of course, there's always a concern that any officer that goes to work on any day may not return home that day. So this is something that I know. This is something he's accepted. You can't do this job without that reality. The things I'm concerned about now with him, and as for other young officers, is that I've seen officers who are now so gun shy to do their job because they're so afraid of getting charged or litigation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems now that the culture is, as soon as an officer does something, fire him or her and then start to prosecute. I still like to see due process go through. And
Okay.
and when it's cut and dried,
Right,
that's
right.
one thing. If you got it on camera, it's cut and dried, yes, do the right thing.
Right.
But if it's ambiguous, then let due process happen. Find out what happened. Interview witnesses. Investigate it. Because I've seen officers under the incident where the sergeant in Baltimore City got slapped twice, got hit twice. He didn't get slapped. He got punched twice by the lady on the street
Right.
before the black officer hit the lady and knocked her out. But that's the kind of underreaction that officers are doing now. That type of hesitation with a person with a gun can end up with you not going home that day. So I want him to be smart. I want him to be aware. I want him to do his job, and I want him to protect the citizenry
Right.
and himself.
Right.
So I watched him. Some folks say he's a little bit more gung-ho than I am now. I'm kind of old and I'm settled down. But I know he's not. We talk about it all the time. I know he's not out to do any harm to anybody.
Right.
He's a Christian young man. He's out there trying to protect and serve, and he truly believes that. That's why he's in the Army, and he's a Baltimore City Sheriff. So, yes, that the thing that, this job may take his life
Right.
is always prevalent, but I know he's smart enough, and I know he's diligent enough, and I just pray that he does the things like he's supposed to do,
Right.
and he comes home every day.
Man, bro, Tillery, I really appreciate the time you took to share. You shared some great information with us. I want to shout out a lot of people live on Facebook: Alicia Thomas, Sue Chapman, Elisa Dabney, Jose Tutt, Brenda Bethea, Darren Moore, Love Sweetie, that's Shelly. Who else we got? I want to shout out Still Standing Dee Dee, Corey, Eric, Doris Cook, Charlie Peck, my man from SEPTA in Philly. Got Philly in the house with Darren and them, Rashid Womack, John Talley, Kimberly Colbert, Doris Cook. A lot of folks are watching, appreciate it. But I really want to thank you, Brother Tillery, for giving us that insight, seeing it from your perspective, because I don't want police officers and law enforcement that are like you to be hurt by what a certain percentage of officers and policemen are doing. So don't forget the National Black Association Incorporated. They have a website, www.blackpolice.org or nationaloffice@blackpolice.org. They have a pamphlet, what to do when stopped by the police. I had a great time. Looking forward to more interviews. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. And until the next time, just remember, experience all a word with Wilkie. God bless you from the Edgewood Church of Christ. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, brother.
A brand new way. In everything I give you, Lord Jesus, because everything you gave. So with all my heart, I'm going to love you, Lord. With all